Hi, everybody. Jackie Woodside here again with the Conscious Living Summit. And today I am beyond excited to bring on my colleague and very dear friend, Anna Lang from Edmonton, right? Edmonton, Winnipeg, from Winnipeg, Canada, making this, yes, an international Conscious Living Summit. I've worked with Anna on some other projects before, and what I know about her is A, she's brilliant, B, she's super, super generous, and C, she's an extraordinary teacher in the space of consciousness and conscious living. So I am so grateful to have you here today, Anna. You know, maybe some people on the summit haven't had the opportunity to know you or to meet you. So can you just say a little bit about what brought you here and your path to being a mastermind of conscious living?
Well, that was an incredibly generous introduction. And Jackie, thank you for having me here. It is just an honor to know you and a delight to be beside you. So,
Thank you.
and as for my journey, really, I started out like we all do, nice little innocent little baby. And at some point, I became a bloody hot mess.
Happens.
It happens,
It
right?
happens.
It happens, but it happens for very similar reasons, I think, for a lot of people. We start off and then something happens to us when we're kids, right? For me, it was getting ditched by a bunch of friends, and I felt my family life was falling apart, and I had a tumultuous teenage life, and there was suicide. There's all these things, but they were stories that built on stories that built on stories that created a life experience that was completely disempowered. And I spiraled that. I leveled up those emotions, and then I looked for more of the same, and I leveled them up and I leveled them up until they became such a part of my consciousness I couldn't detach from them.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in sort of a space where you know what they say, when something gets so bad, you have to change it, right?
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable. The discomfort of changing is not as uncomfortable as staying where you are. So I hit that spot.
Yeah.
And I've spent the last 15 years digging myself
Right. I was
out.
gonna say, and what got you to the point, you know, so you hit bottom, right? You
Yeah.
had that experience of hitting bottom. And, I think that is kind of the human journey, the hero's journey of coming home to the self. What was it that was your wake up call and brought you into this place of really valuing conscious living so much that you've really dedicated your career to it?
Well, I think ironically it was having kids in a nutshell did it. Because
Yeah.
when you have kids, you look at yourself.
Well,
And when
actually, I don't think enough people do. So the fact that you
oh
had kids and decided to look at yourself, I mean, I think that's one of the issues that a lot of parents face is that they want their kids to be me. They have the projection
mm,
of me, and that instead of looking at themselves, they look at the kid and say, "What's wrong?" And what why aren't you more of me? So it's really great that you were able to do that.
well, yeah, I think parents though, I don't think they realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
We lead how we were led.
Right, right. Well, and that, I mean, is that it? That is conscious living, right? If you don't know you're doing it, you are unconscious. We lead where we're
Right.
led fairly unconsciously until there's some opportunity to awaken and begin look exactly as you said. I looked at myself. I can't tell
Hmm.
you how brilliant that is, and particularly as a parent, which I think is one of the hardest places to look at yourself and really ask some hard questions and bring awareness. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. But why is it hard, right? Because I don't want, when you're disempowered, when I was disempowered, I'm not going to say you, when I was disempowered, I was so fragile that the idea of being more wrong than I already felt was almost too much to deal with.
Yeah.
So when you have kids and you feel even more wrong than you already think you are, that's a tough space.
Tough space. It's a tough space to be in.
Yeah.
So what were some of the things that kind of helped you get out of that kind of rock bottom, looking at yourself, being a parent, sounds like a conscious parent. What were some of the things that you gravitated toward?
Well, there was a lot of trial and error. I'm trying to think of the specific things. I think really what happened was I didn't have the relationships I wanted. And at
Mm.
some point, I had to say the common denominator was myself. It wasn't, the whole world can't be wrong around me. Right? And so I started to buy these books, and the books were really rough because everything in books, especially Algerian philosophy, was me. And I was faced with this concept of either I have to own up to and get over my fragility and say, okay, I got to own this, or I'm going to have the disempowered relationships that I understood were part of my past. And that's a whole other story because that wasn't true. None of that was true. That was all
Mhm.
constructed in my head. So,
Well, that's another brilliant point about conscious living, right? That a lot of what causes us to go unconscious aren't things that are, quote, true. There are perceptions. They're exactly as you said, things we make up in our head that aren't true or untrue. It's just what we're making up.
and we're making it up to try and be a thing so that we can have the security we think we can get by being in that weird belief. And it actually makes you less secure. And then there's another spiral. Oh, if we could count the tornadoes that I made. I'm telling you.
I so appreciate your vulnerability and sharing all of that. It speaks volumes of you, Anna, and who you are. We're talking about this notion of conscious living. And I was saying before I hit record on our interview here, that one of my motivations for having this summit is for us to really break down what does it mean to live consciously? What does conscious living mean? And to bring together some just wonderful teachers and thought leaders to answer that question. So, there's spirituality and health magazine and yoga magazine, and there's a yoga class in every YMCA now,
Of
or
course.
on every corner, meditation classes, adult education centers are teaching meditation, which is all great, but it can also be overwhelming and confusing. So what does it mean to you to live a conscious life? What does conscious living mean?
I think conscious living for me is getting out of theater and getting into relationship, right? And we've talked about this. I'm writing about this right now. I love it. That was the sound of you nailed this.
There you go, right? It was right there. Boom.
It's like when the game show buzzer goes off, it's like you won. You
Validation.
won. But seriously, so much of what I think we fall into that makes us unconscious is the theater. It's every voice has to be heard. No. Every voice is worthy of being heard, but nobody is entitled to be heard. If you don't create safety for other people, if you're yelling at them, if you're creating an environment that is toxic, you don't deserve to be heard. You're worthy, and your voice is worthy, and your ideas are worthy. Nobody has to listen to you, right? Awesome. That's a theater that we indulge in.
Yeah. So, wow. So not every voice deserves to be heard. It's worthy to be heard, but doesn't deserve to be heard. That sounds really intense. So
it is. It's entitlement.
Entitlement. So you feel that our culture now is kind of steeped in some kind of entitlement that, social media, everybody has a voice, whether it's true or not.
Yeah, I have opinions here. I watch it happen. We all watch it happen. We see people who feel entitled to other people's actions, reactions, and feelings. We see parents do it. We see leaders do it. We see people on the internet doing it.
Wait, what do you mean by that? What do you mean we see people who are entitled to other people's reactions? I don't understand.
So I come home and I perceive that my husband has done something or disrespected me or whatever I perceive.
Right.
And I feel entitled that he should have to listen to me tell him about that. Well, newsflash, I'm not entitled to that. I earn the right for him to listen to me by how I show up. And if I don't earn it, I don't deserve it. And I know that can get contentious, and you say, well, there's abusive relations, and I get all of that. And this goes down a long and winding road, but we're going to take it into sort of a high level where both people are reasonably balanced and we can go down the other road if you want as well. But when I come in, it is up to me. It is up to me to show up in a way that creates a security, a safety in others that enables them to want to share with me. Crucial Conversations has this wonderful term. They call it the pool of meaning. And that's the understanding that exists between you and me, right? Mm-hmm. So if I say something to you and you understand it, it goes in the pool. If I come in guns a-blazing and I speak at you, or if I passively aggressive swipe at you, the meaning that you take and put in the pool is going to be radically different than what I perceive you. Or you're to deflect it altogether. Right. And then nothing has happened.
Yeah.
Because I'm not entitled to the information you choose to put in.
Not entitled.
I have to serve you with it.
I don't understand that. I'm not entitled to the information you put in. Say more about that.
So I feel that you have to listen to me. You have to. I am owed that your understanding of me is as I want it to be. Mm-hmm. Not, hey, I serve you with the way I am being, and you interpret it as you choose and put that interpretation in the pool of meaning. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, got it.
Like I'm worthy, but I'm not entitled.
I'm worthy, but I'm not entitled. You said something about that when people create a safe space, that communication can happen. Say more about that, and how do people create safe space in relationships? This is great. You're actually the first speaker that's kind of really diving into conscious living in relationships. So I love that this is where we've gone with this. But how do you create that sense of safety so that both people are participating in that pool of meaning and there's connection and intimacy? And how do you create that safety, and how does that relate to living consciously?
Oh, there's a lot of questions in there. So
yeah, I know. I ask multiple questions, you dive in where you want.
Well, no, and these are all really good questions because at the base of it, safety is when the other person is comfortable enough with you that they feel they can be authentically themselves. They can express authentically, they can be authentic, they can be who they are, and they don't have to be thinking about that so much. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I am authentically able to be who I am. That means I have safety with the other person. So when you walk into a room of strangers, you don't have safety yet. You don't know what they think. You're in there. You may or may not be judging. I'm judging. I know that's not very conscious of me, but I'll walk into a room and I look around and I look to see, are these people, do they look friendly? Are they smiling? Are their arms crossed? Are they open to me walking into like all of these things? And that will determine how sort of uptight some people really, really get. Some depending on your interactions in those spaces, and we can get into that too, but competence breeds confidence. So if you're competent in that situation, you will be much better off than someone who's never been in that situation, right? So they'll go probably into a little bit more of the fear zone, which is another reason public speaking is so hard, right?
So would you say that competence and confidence are part of being conscious?
Oh, for sure. For sure. For sure. I think everything plays in. Yeah. But if you want to look at how you create safety, you can look at how you break down safety, and that'll give you a really good view. So there's two things that can happen. If I come into a conversation with somebody and I don't feel they're listening to me, mm-hmm. I watch their body language and it's not open. They're looking down at their phone. They're backing up. I don't feel that they care. I don't feel they're interested. I feel disrespected. That collapses safety. If people are interrupting me, it collapses safety, right? So I can choose either get angry with that. I can choose to sulk. That's silence and violence. Again, terms from Crucial Conversations. I won't own those. That's just a great book. But I will either go forward or retract, right? I'll expand or contract depending on my personality style. There's no safety. Alternatively, I walk into an environment that's hostile. It's a, family meeting, or I know mom is mad, or, there's a history of, it used to be when I would go see my mom, I was on guard. I was on guard because I felt there was going to be an explosion or a fight or nitpicking or you name what it was. So there was no safety.
Okay.
So then how do you, oh, sorry.
Well, I'm just curious. So how do you create internal safety? So you're talking about seeing the environment, and I agree, right? Kind of understanding the landscape, understanding the context of relationships that you're walking into, looking to see how people are engaging or not engaging with you, assessing all of that. And then it sounds like determining how you move, how you interact. And that's one way of conscious living, like really being present to how I'm being engaged with in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious about, so kind of psychological safety. I teach a little bit about this. Psychological safety in the workplace is one of the things that I teach.
Yeah, huge.
And yeah, it is huge. So all the things that you're talking about are really important, and that level of self-awareness that is required, because I think what a lot of people do is project outward. They don't like me, or they're hostile, or they're a jerk, or they, whatever, rather than, I'm feeling a little off here. I'm feeling valued. I'm feeling not seen. So people tend to project outward. But once you've assessed kind of what's happening in the relational sphere, right, and that space in between, how do you create that safety, whether it's out there or not? Say someone is, like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, I'll get with you. Yeah, no worries. And they're really not giving you your due. They're not showing you that respect, or they're actively hostile and disagreeing. How do you create that inner safety, whether it's outside you or not?
Oh, there's so much here. There is so much here. Oh, how long do we have? So
just dive in.
This is a really good time to talk about. So Peter Docker, he was the co-author, one of the co-authors of Find Your Why, and he has an excellent way of explaining how to have, and that's internal confidence. So we're sort of off the safety a little bit. It says safety is something I create and I am always responsible for. Nobody else creates safety for me. I create safety for me, and I create safety for others. If others don't feel safe around me, they aren't responding to me properly. It's not a them issue, it's a me issue, right? So how I'm showing up. But you're saying, when I perceive in the environment to be hostile, how would I set myself up so I don't feel the environment is hostile? I don't feel attacked. I don't feel belittled. I don't feel somebody else is making me less. And that comes down to this concept that Peter talks about, which is position versus stand. Now, a position means I come in and I have you have to get vaccinated. That's a position.
Yeah.
Because if everyone in the world was vaccinated, what am I against now? There's nothing left. It disappears, right? The position disappears without the opposition.
Yes.
But if it's a stand, and my stand is for global health,
yep,
it doesn't matter if I'm pro or against vaccination. I can hear both of them and I can understand them from a position of detachment, because it's not the answer I care about. It's the stand.
That's brilliant. Yeah, detachment as a part of psychological safety is really important. When you get attached to, it has to look this way, it should be this way,
yes,
this way, man, that is an energy drain and just sucks the life and the personal power right out of you.
But that's also a sign that when people are saying you should do this, you have to do this, that's you in a value that you don't actually value, that somebody else pushed on you. Now you're pushing it on someone else because, oh, well, now there's justification for why I held myself into this thing that I don't actually want. I'm building a tribe around me of the similar opinion so that I don't have to look at why I wasted my own time on it.
So get that.
So that's a little bit that's more theater. That's more unconsciousness, right? Those are the theatrics that hold us out of consciousness. Instead of saying, oh, wow, I have an opportunity to let go of this thing. I push it on my brother. I push it on my mother. I try and get all my friends enrolled in it. And I create all kinds of non-psychological safety because I'm in a position that I don't believe in, instead of a stand for consciousness.
So great. Yeah. Being attached to being right is, I think, a way that people don't realize they're really going unconscious. when you have to be right, or you get, super attached to this is the way, opinions, being attached to your opinions is a way of going unconscious. You can't hear, you can't engage, you can't be present when you're more committed to being right than being in relationship.
And you look at where that comes from too. That is fear. Because if you moved into love, you wouldn't have it.
Yeah. So say more about that. That's a brilliant distinction right there about conscious living. So if you move out of fear and you say if you move into love, you wouldn't have it. You wouldn't have that positionality. You wouldn't have that angst of being right. So say more about that, the fear versus love, and how do people move out of it? Because it seems like there's an awful lot of fear driving our world these days.
Yeah, there is a lot of fear, but you're attached. There's so many things. It's a web. My ego is in there, and all of my childhood hurts are in there, and all of the things that I use to create my cage of competency is my degrees and my all of the stuff that I've earned and done and my experiences, like all of that stuff creates it's me protecting that small piece of me that's somewhere in the middle that can love freely because I'm afraid. So again, and I'll go back and I'm talking about vaccines because it's like politics, right? The end of the day, what matters is the well-being of the planet. How we get there, if we chose to go through love, we wouldn't be fighting. We wouldn't be fighting. We would be listening to each other. And I had a great conversation with somebody the other day who was talking about why they were afraid of the vaccine, and they were very open about it, and they had done a whole lot of research about it. And I was really impressed with what they had done. But I was able to look at it not from oh my God, they're not vaccinated.
Yeah.
Right. And so you say, how do you move out of fear and into love? You've got to let go of your ego. You've got to let go of being right.
Yeah.
And you have to care more about the other person and about the stand than you do about the details and the data that you're trying to hold on to, right? Maybe you're worried your chair is going to fall out from underneath you. I don't know what your fear is, but maybe if you looked at that, got conscious about it, you could be more in love.
So you're saying the path then to moving from fear out of love is to be conscious of what's driving your fears, what has you be so positional, why you need to be right about this, and what's really driving that. Our culture right now, whether in Canada or the US, both are so positional and oppositional. People are very much in their positions rather than in their stands. And I think the more we do that, the more unconscious we become. So coming back to self, coming back to love, recognizing, oh, I'm afraid. I'm afraid that my kid is going to get this virus. I'm afraid that my senior parents are going to be infected, or that I'll bring it to them. I'm afraid of this pandemic that I can't understand. Or on the other side of it, I'm afraid of this science. I'm afraid that science doesn't understand it. I'm afraid of the government that is trying to do something to us or whatever. But yeah, I think a lot of what's happening in our world is driven by fear. People say it's hatred of the other side. I don't think it's so much hatred as it is fear of what's different.
Yeah, and the fear is killing us. Like it's actually killing us, right?
Say more.
Well, your autonomic nervous system, when you're in fear and you're in stress, you're in fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, there's a whole bouquet of chemicals that your body produces. And one of the most obvious things that happens in fight or flight, and you will know this, obviously you've been trained in this, but your stomach, all of your digestive tract, it shuts down because you don't need that when you're running from a lion. So let's look at what that does to you long term. Yeah. Those chemicals that stop your system from digesting, lasting long term, let's look at all the stomach problems we have. And then let's take 5 seconds to say, oh, maybe there's a relation. There's all kinds of other stuff. It increases your heart rate. It increases your blood pressure. Over time, heart attacks, stroke, people, like this is all related. Living in fear makes you sick. It physiologically makes you sick.
So living unconscious makes you sick.
Yes.
Yeah. Living unconscious makes you sick. It impacts your health. It impacts your longevity.
It does.
Are we yet ready to awaken?
I was going to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, no.
Well, I know
were
you're as passionate about this as I am, about this whole thing of awakening, because, uh, you live longer, but it makes, my thing is, let's just bring heaven on earth. Let's
yes.
create that sense of oneness. And I love that notion of taking a stand versus a position. Take a stand for one another, that we can create a world that works for everyone. But you can't do that when you're unconscious and afraid.
Yes, and the other problem is that to wake up, we need community. And
Mhm.
we are not built, programmed, or designed to go alone. We seek it out unconsciously at every level, and yet we do everything we can to avoid intimacy and put ourselves into frightful amounts of unconsciousness and fear. It's a lot of the reason we have so much troubles communicating. On one hand, we want to completely alleviate the fear of rejection, and yet by isolating ourselves, we are guaranteeing rejection
Right.
because we are so incompetent with our communication at this point in the world and in understanding. And the first thing people do is look for why the other person isn't being or respecting or seeing them the way they want to be seen, right? But if we wanted to imagine if we were in a space where we understood that consciousness is in community, and we helped each other and we were open to each other and we allowed each other in long enough to make a difference and help us get where we're going.
So beautiful. I share that value with you about creating community, and it is, and particularly in the pandemic, it's been an incredibly isolating time. But I think even before the pandemic, people are so plugged in, but very rarely truly connected.
Yeah.
And
But they're trying to get it. That's the thing. You think you're, and I get it, introvert, extrovert people, you're gonna have to wake up a little bit on this one. Like, I get it, but you're on your phone, you're searching for community. That's why you're there,
right,
right?
exactly
We're
right.
programmed for community. You're not on the internet because you want to see how to live. You want to see how people are existing because we value that whole connection. It's how you understand yourself. It's how you understand where you're at. We don't grow alone. We never grow alone.
Get that. I love it. You're speaking my language. You said just a few minutes ago that consciousness is in community. And it's just one of my personal passions and interests is asking all these brilliant teachers that I'm interviewing on this summit, how do you understand the notion of consciousness? Because it's one of these things that we talk about a lot in our communities and coaching and personal development communities, but I don't know that we've got, well, we don't have a definition of it. Not that that's a bad thing, but again, my goal here is to deepen the conversation. So how do you understand the notion of consciousness?
I understand it as a metaphor, if you will. And if you could think of yourself at the bottom of the ocean and the water above you is all of the people, places, things, emotions, tasks, anything tangible that you can imagine. And consciousness is the process of you swimming through all of that to get your first breath of air.
Wow, that's a beautiful metaphor. Consciousness is getting your first breath of air. Say more, deepen that. Love it. It's a great metaphor.
I don't know how else to expand on it. It's just,
Yeah.
for me, consciousness is the idea of the ultimate freedom where we're all tangibly, we hit the point where we are able to understand each other at a level that we don't currently understand because it's not, as you say, it's not defined, right? Where you're me and I'm you, and we're all interconnected and we're fully aware of it all because we're not buried under anything else.
So great. I'm absolutely loving this. So thank you so much for just your wisdom and your grace. I love that you're bringing in relationships and bringing in community. It just echoes so much about who you are. So thank you for that. And you're in Canada, a much more light and friendly country than what I'm living in the United States. I know. That's my perception, right? I'm living literally a mile away from Canada right now, and I look across the St. Lawrence River every day over the summer and just like kind of wish, that I would live.
You see the glow of our smiles
I
across
see
the
the glow of those happy Canadians over there. All right. Anyway, so it's, it's my perception that the current cultural climate is not exactly one that I would call conscious because of the division and the strife. I mean, yes, there are factions of it. Conscious and consciousness are not the same thing. My definition of consciousness is the vibe, the vibratory pattern that gets created by how we think, feel, act, speak, and engage, right? It's the vibe that we create to our inner world, right? So so that's your consciousness, but you need to be conscious of your consciousness.
Yeah.
So that you can manage yourself in order to engage and create community. Be conscious or aware of my consciousness, my thoughts, my beliefs, my emotions, my attitudes, what's driving me right now. Is it entitlement? I'm right. Is it privilege? Is it, I'm wealthy? Is it, sense of not being confident? I can't step up because. So we are constantly driven by our beliefs. So what's your take on, what's gotten us here in terms of conscious or unconscious living in community?
Really, I think it's just so many of us simply just don't feel worthy. At the end of the day, if I look at what causes the disconnects and the breakdowns and the problems, we don't feel worthy. And when we don't feel worthy, we armor up. We armor up with our words. We armor up with our achievements. We armor up with our how much money we make and what we look like. We armor up.
And that's another form of unconsciousness, of being unconscious.
It is. And we can't be in community consciously if we're in an arms race with each other.
We can't be in community consciously when we're in an arms race with each other. So what are 2 or 3 things that people can do, like starting today, that would help them engage more consciously with the people around them in community?
Oh, only 2 or 3. Okay.
Well, I didn't want to put you on the spot and ask you of 10 or 12.
No, you know what? I will do 4 because they are my top 4, and I talk about them in course and I talk about them in workshop, and they make such a difference. And you'll be very familiar with them. Deletions. When you're talking to somebody, notice when you're like deliberately deleting information to create the story you want. So when I'm talking to you, Jackie, and you're saying all kinds of stuff to me, and then you happen to make an offhanded comment about maybe my hair, and I delete every good thing you've said and only remember what you said about my hair, that's deletion. That is deliberately recalling only that which will hurt me or make you bad.
Wow, that's powerful.
Okay? So that's one. That's a big one. Distortions. It's kind of like deletions, only I'm taking what you say. And I don't know if you've probably heard the term gracious attribution, which is the people that I know, trust, and like can say stuff to me, and I'll be like, yeah, well, but she didn't mean that. Or she meant it like this, or that she was talking to the dog, or whatever. But if I don't like you, you're my coworker, you've triggered me before. Well, Frank walked by, and did you see the sideways glance? Like, I know he's going to talk to someone about this thing that he saw me do this morning. Like, he's going to be a dick to me in the meeting today. I just know it, right? That's distortion.
Yeah.
And that will make your life hell.
Right.
Like everything you think will come true. I promise you.
Don't believe everything you think, because most of what you think is not true.
Right. And then the third one is generalizations. All men are narcissists is the number one thing I hear. It is the most frustrating thing I hear. And I don't want to downplay that it is a diagnosable thing that does happen, but it's 1 in 200 people, 1 in 200. If the ratio existed to the degree that I am told, there would be no one left. There would be no one left. So all men are narcissists, all cats are evil, all this is that, all whatever. Those are generalizations. They minimize, and they strip people of their identities, their personalities, their potential. You create a monster of the masses. All Republicans are like this. Heck no, I know a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats, and I tell you, they're highly intelligent, amazing people on both sides. And the final one, and this one I am guilty of, is personalizations, making everything about me.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's about me. Oh, did you see what happened over there? Oh, that, you know, if I know that if I would have done something different, then everybody would have been so much happier, or I didn't bring the salad and therefore the whole meal was ruined. Like, get over yourself. Literally get over yourself. No, it's not all about you. And no, the bus driver didn't drive past you because you're a horrible person. You know, he made a mistake. It has nothing to do with you. Anyways, those would be the four, and I could go on for probably a lot longer.
Are brilliant ways of creating conscious community, which is one of the things that I know you value and I value as well. And I'm so happy to be creating conscious community with you, Anna. I know you're writing a book. I know that you teach summits, that you host summits, that you teach courses. How can people find you and learn more about you, or get in touch to maybe do some work with you?
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for asking me that, Jackie. If people want to get in touch with me, I have courses. I do values determination. I have a workshop. It's genius skills mining. So we actually go into your past and we check out your highs and your challenges. And from that, we mine your signature skill sets, who your target market is, the language that you uniquely have to serve them, and why your cocktail matters. It's a beautiful, beautiful workshop. I have several other courses and private facilitation, speaking. That's all on my website, www.annalang.ca. I like to keep it simple.
Yes.
CA because I'm Canadian.
Love that, and love the accent.
And I also host summits. All of that is on my website. I run a YouTube series. I have master classes with authors. I want to get a master class going with you, just putting it out there.
Love that. Yeah, let's do that together. Well, thank you so much for being here, for your, just your really unique thoughts and take. I love that you bring in this notion of community and how we can strive to create a conscious world where all of us get to know one another, grow and thrive. So it's really been fun having you, Anna. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. It's always an honor to be with you.
Mwah.